Welcome this week to our next session of the Clutter Corner. I'm Angela Brown, and I've been a professional house cleaner for 32 years, 25 years out in the field, and I've been training house cleaners and maids for about 32 years. And I have been inside thousands of people's homes. And one of the things that we have run into over the last many years is that people who are in a state of clutter or disorganization, often it's because of a sense of indecisiveness or procrastination, or it might even be that they are paralyzed and they don't know where to start. So I want to jump in and I want to say hello to Fran. Fran, I'm so glad that you joined me here today. Thank you so much. This is a really exciting time for me to be able to share some of the things that I've learned while out in the field. And maybe it can help us have a conversation either with someone that we love, or maybe someone in our home, or maybe it's ourselves. So this is kind of those tough conversations, and we're several weeks into a series that we've been doing. And I wanted to share one story with you at the top of today before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's session. And please jump in and ask your questions. I'll be answering questions as we go. And I hope that this is a really interactive session with us today. But I wanted to share this with you. There's a woman that contacted me over the last week, and she said she's been listening to our difficult conversations. And the one that we had on trusting yourself to build better relationships, struck a chord with her. And she decided that in that session, we talked about where you say, excuse me, where you say, we haven't talked in many years. And since the last several years, I've grown up a little bit and I'm more mature now and I'm ready to have a conversation that we didn't have before. She reached out to her mother that she had been estranged from for 35 years. And her mother was the hoarder. She was the one that was trying to encourage her mother to change, and her mother wasn't changing. But her mother had reached out to her numerous times hoping to repair the conversation, and the daughter wasn't ready. So the daughter had been on one of these calls, and she contacted her mother, and she said, and I'm sharing this story with you with her permission, she wanted to remain anonymous, so she didn't want to jump up here and share it with you herself. But she reached out to her mother and she said, I'm ready to accept you as you are without trying to change you. And she said it was one of the most enlightening and liberating conversations that she'd ever had, because what she didn't realize is that in harboring these hard feelings against her mother and holding her mother hostage, and if you won't change, we can't have a relationship. She said by letting go and just accepting her mother as she was, her mother, now even being more elderly, was open to change, but just excited to have the opportunity to reconnect with her daughter. And she said that they've started having lunches and dinners together. And she said that the conversations have turned to, how can I accept you as you are, where you are, without trying to change you? And the mother, because of her daughter's willingness to accept her for as she was, started saying, I'm actually open to making changes. I too have matured. I've made some changes in my life. I'm ready now to be closer and meet you closer to halfway to where you are. And so not a perfect relationship yet, but the tides have turned, right? So the relationship is now in a state of repair, where it was just hard feelings before. And the daughter said to me, I felt like I had been drinking poison and I was hoping the other person would die. Meaning I hoped that my mother would change, and I was the one that was suffering from all the anxiety and the stress and the worry over the relationship, where in fact, I was punishing myself. And by accepting her for who she was, it released a whole bunch of stress and anxiety and what have you. So I just wanted to share that story, that these conversations do matter. I know they're not easy, but by having the tough conversations, we get to be adults and we get to mature through the process, and we get to see the light at the end of the tunnel instead of just hovering in the darkness, if you will. I want to say hi to Lynn. Lynn, hi, I'm super excited from Canada, checking in. That's so exciting. Sarah, it's good to see you as well. And Melanie, hi Melanie, good to see you. And I'm super excited that you guys are here with me today, because today we're going to talk about, again, another tough subject. Now, the tough subject that we're talking about today, in terms of where we're headed with this, is the indecisiveness, the procrastination, and the paralysis. And so when I say, what is indecisiveness? Okay, because that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with indecisiveness, and then we're going to bounce out to a couple of, a couple of real life scenarios that we're going to deal with every single day. And that's going to give us a suggestion on how we might use this. So indecisiveness is the inability to make a decision or to choose between two or more options. It can lead to clutter and disorganization, as individuals may put off making decisions and leave items out, resulting in a cluttered space. So what we're talking about here today is having too many options. Now, this is easy when you go to a restaurant and they've got like 5 menus, right? They've got the fold out menu, and then they have the little lunch and dinner menu, and then you flip it over and they got a drink menu, and then sitting on the table, they got a dessert menu. And you sit here and you're like, I just came for one meal and I have so many choices, right? This goes back to a conversation we had earlier about decision fatigue, where you get so many decisions in the course of a day before your mind just kind of checks out, right? And so instead of leaving the heavy decisions for the last part of the day, what we want to do is make those tough decisions in the morning, right? But the easier you make your life through the day, the less decisions you have to make. So what we're going to do with the indecisiveness, because this is something that comes up again and again and again in all the different homes that we visit, is people say, well, I just don't know where to start. Have you ever heard that? I don't know where to start. I see that my house is cluttered. I know I'm supposed to do something. I don't know what to do. It's because we have so many choices. So what is the difference between indecisiveness and procrastination? And that's a really great question. And the great question comes on, we'll talk about paralysis first. Paralysis is, when it comes to decluttering, is the inability to decide what to keep and what to discard. Paralysis is charged by emotional attachments and overwhelm. And it is a little bit different from procrastination, in that procrastination is a conscious decision to delay or avoid taking action on decluttering, when paralysis is the inability to decide. So we're going to use these 3 things to determine what's going to happen next as we start going through all the different areas of our lives. Okay, we've talked about the mind-body connection. So now we're healthy, we're wealthy, we're wise, we're ready to tackle those decluttering situations in our lives. Okay, so we're going to talk about indecisiveness and paralysis and procrastination. We're not going to talk so much about procrastination and paralysis today, because both of those will kind of resolve themselves if we talk about indecision first. So have you ever been in the car and you're driving along with your spouse, and your spouse says, hey, what should we have for dinner tonight? And there's an indecision because we have so many choices. Are we going to cook at home? Are we going to cook out? How are we going to do dinner tonight, right? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to pick that one, because that's pretty common. Lots of people have that same scenario. Fran says, the reason I don't like on IHOP is too many menu items. There's this one place near where we used to live, and thanks for bringing that up. My husband refused to go there because their menu was so big. It was like really, really tall, and then it was really wide, and it had hundreds of options. He said, I just can't decide when I go there, so I hate to go to that restaurant. And I love to go there because they had 1 or 2 things, but I always pick the same 1 or 2 things, right? I think lots of us do that. We like to narrow our decisions down. All right, so today we're going to play a fun game, and I'm going to rely on you guys to help me out in the comments section, where you can, in fact, you know what? Let me give you the link. I think there's a link here I can give you. You guys can jump up on screen with me if you like, and we can go through this together. Let's see, where's my link here? Right here. And I'm going to add this to our notes. And you can jump right up on screen with me if you like, and we can have just a conversation face to face, or you can leave your notes inside the comments. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to walk through a couple of scenarios that are common to us, and we're going to discover how many of these are stressful situations. So the first one is going to be the pantry, the cupboards, or the closets. And how this works is this. Let's pretend that you're moving across the country and you have to pack up your whole home, but you just don't know where to start. Oh, I have so many things to pack up. I just don't know where to start. Do I pack up the pantry first, or do I pack up the cupboards first, or do I pack up the closets first? Off the top of your head, type in the notes which one you would pack up first. I'm curious to see what your ideas are. And I'm going to make myself small on the screen here. Actually, I'm going to make our pantry, cupboards, and closets small so that I can have this conversation with you. Because what we're going to do is we're going to walk item by item through each of these, and we're going to figure out the pros and the cons. We got a Facebook user that says they would do their closet first. And Lynn says she would do her closet first. So I know lots of people are now excited about the closet first. Fran Thompson said she would do her closet first. All right, so type in the comments. I'm curious to know why you would do the closets first. What makes this the easiest decision? And that's where we want to start, is we want to start with the easiest decision. Sarah says the closet first as well. Joanne says declutter first. And I don't know if that's decluttering all of the above first or if it's decluttering just the closet first. This is so much fun. I figure I can eat the pantry and cupboard food and lessen it before the move. So Lynn, does that mean, because you said you do the closet first. So I guess the pantry takes care of itself while you're working on the closet, I'm guessing is what that's all about. So Sarah says the closet items must come with, because of the packing and the moving. So that has to be determined first. Got it. So is the goal then to throw out some of the items from the pantry if you're not going to eat them? And Fran Thompson says not perishable. Okay. And Melanie says the closet first, eating up the pantry items once decided on the move. Okay. We've got a Facebook user that said the pantry food stuff is perishable. And so I'm guessing that person is saying, and we can't see on Facebook, we can't see your name or anything unless you authorize StreamYard to accept that. Otherwise, we'll just call you Facebook user. So yay. Pantry food stuff is perishable. And then JP Muirfoot says, don't know where to start. That's me. Okay, so we're gonna make it kind of easy. What we're gonna do is go through a series of 10 steps. The first time we do the 10 steps, it's gonna seem a little bit overwhelming. Melanie says the cupboards because are already in boxes and bins. Okay, so that would be easy to just move. So I see the train of thought where all of you guys are coming from. Now, the good news is this: there's no right or wrong place to start. So all of you are correct in your answers. Nobody loses points for picking one over the other. It's going to be different for every single household. Okay. One of the things that's encouraging about this is lots of people will say, I just don't know where to start. So we're going to start with a series of 10 things. They're 10 simple things, and many of them don't apply. And so the quicker, the faster you do this series of 10 things, it's going to become second nature to you. And making decisions is going to start to be a snap decision. And you're going to go, da, 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 da. Yes, there's my answer. Okay. And this is going to help you in every area of life. But we're going to pick a couple of easy ones for today, because these you get to practice tonight on tonight's activities. We're going to start with the moving one, though, because I already opened that can of worms and I started us there. So we'll go through those first. Okay. So in order to do this, the first one is to gather information. So we want to research and gather information about the decision that needs to be made. And this will provide a clearer understanding of the situation and make it an easier decision. Okay. So if we go back to our pantry, our closets, our cupboards and our closets, the information that we're gathering is a series of things. Now, I got a lot of good feedback from you already here in the notes about the cupboards are already in boxes and bins that will be easy to move. Someone else said that the items are perishable. Again, that would be easy to eat the food as you go, as you're packing everything else up, not worry about that so much as it would be to go ahead and do the closets first, right? So now we've gathered the information, we've made decisions, quick decisions based on how long is it going to take to pack up the stuff and get it ready to move and what have you, okay? So gathering information was the very first item on our list. Now, lots of times with just a couple quick ideas in our head that bounce through, we can make those quick decisions and we don't need to sit down and research how quick will the food perish or any of those things, right? Easy peasy decisions. So if I look at my pantry, my cupboards, and my closet, gathering the information was very quick. If I look at the bigger picture, I can see that with my clothes are pretty much organized and I can see at a glance where all my clothes are, so I know what to wear. I can see at a glance which ones I'm probably going to donate or give away before I move. I can see the shoes that are available right now. And if it's the summertime and I'm going to be wearing sandals and flip-flops, I could probably grab all of those boots, for example, and pack those up in a box, right? So that's some information that would be easy to decide. If I look over at my cupboards slide, I have pots and pans, and there are probably lots of pots and pans that I don't use on a regular basis. So I could pack those up, and that would be an easy first step. And if our goal was to make a decision on the easiest things first, it would be easy to pack up the cupboards with the pots and pans. But another piece of information is I may use those pots and pans before I move. So that may be one of the last things that I pack up. With the pantry, some of the information that we might gather is that some of that food is perishable. And so do we want to eat that food between now and the time that we move before we just keep going shopping for more food and don't know what we have? So again, there's no right or wrong place to start, but that's the information that we've gathered. All right, so on to the next slide, we're going to identify our priorities. Identifying our priorities is figuring out what is most important, and then we prioritize them. And that will help focus on the most critical decisions to set aside the rest. So of all the things that we just looked at, of those, and we were going to identify priorities, which is the highest priority? Is it the food? Because if we pull all the food out, then we know what we have. We know what we're going to take with us. We know what we're probably not going to eat before the move. And we can either start discarding that right now, or we can decide that we're going to eat something before, because we're not going to pack it up and take it with us, right? So we don't want to buy any more, but we want to eat this up and we want to use it. And so that might be a higher priority than packing up clothes, because the clothes that we pack up right now, we may not have the ability to wear those between now and the time that we move. Or we could do one now and we could do one tomorrow. But again, it's just the priority, which is the highest priority of these. So again, with the quick decision, that helps us get closer to our decision. So then the next thing is we're going to do the pros and cons. We're going to weigh the pros and cons, and that will help us make a decision based on logic. Now, one of the fun things that we find ourselves, lots of folks that have a hard time making a decision, is we get caught up in the emotional attachments, which brings us to the procrastination, or where we are unable to make the decisions, right? Because we're emotionally trapped in, what if I do this, or I make the wrong decision, or someone's going to judge me, or there's just overwhelm. And so by making a logical decision with the pros and cons, that helps us decide which is which. So if we go back to the pantry, what are the pros and cons? Share with me in the comments some of the pros of the pantry. If I pack up my pantry right now, what are some of the pros of packing up my pantry? One of the things that I like about packing up the pantry, and a pro for me, would be that I would be able to, at a glance, decide what I want to keep as far as like my spices. I could decide, do I want, in my new house, do I want a smaller spice rack? And all the spices that I'm not going to use between now and then, knowing what I have in my pantry, a pro for me would be that I would know at a glance what I would like to use. That would be a pro. A con for me would be that I want to take some stuff with me, but I'm going to use it between now and then, and I'm not going to take it with me, like a half a tub of soda or something, and then I would dump it out. So that would be a pro, and a con is I may need some stuff that I'm not going to take with me. A pro would be I'm going to know what I have and the expiration dates and things like that. Let's do a pro for the closet. What are the pros for the closets? Does anybody have pros? Some of the pros for me for packing up my closets would be I could get rid of all of the stuff that is not seasonal, anything that I'm not using right now. I could also get rid of the stuff that doesn't actually fit me right now. Some of the cons would be if I have not actually decided what size I want to be, and I'm trying to run on 2 or 3 sizes, whether it's a size smaller or a size larger. If I have not decided that, I might end up packing too much. That would be a con if I'm not quite ready yet. We have, Robin says, pro of having some basics at the new place. I love that. And that gives us a chance to decide what it is exactly that we're going to take with us. That would also be true. And I know in my pantry, I have all my small appliances, like my food shredder and blender and juicer and all those things. There are a couple of small appliance items that are in my pantry that I haven't used for a while. And so one of the pros would be that I would decide right now instead of later. If I end up getting in a rush or a push to move, like let's say the household today and then I'm moving tomorrow, it would be easy if I haven't made those decisions in advance. It would be easy to pop those inside a storage unit and not make those decisions. But if I'm making those decisions when I'm not in a hurry, then I have more latitude to work through them. I can go through all 10 steps on that. Sarah says the pantry first would make make the moving more real for me. Might help motivate for other packing areas. Other packing areas. That is true. And I like that because those are small items, not big items. Many people are not emotionally attached to the items that are in their pantry, like baking soda, for example. That doesn't, that would be easy to get rid of if need be. And that starts the cycle of getting rid of stuff. And so if we're not sure, doing the pros and cons is going to help us then weigh and measure based on a logical decision what comes next. In the closet, Sarah said the closet pro would be to help decide what items will make the move and what will be donated. Now, I like that as well, because if the closet needs more time, one of the pros would be that you would have the time right now, if you're not in a push, that you could go ahead and you could decide what clothing items are you going to get rid of, what ones are you going to keep, what ones are you going to donate. So that would be a pro. That could also be a con in that you're unsure. And so you may want to save that until last. And I think it was Sarah that said doing the pantry first will then get you in the momentum of getting rid of stuff. You may want to do the pantry first and then go to the closet where you got to make the tougher decisions, where you do have those emotional attachments, right? So the pros and cons are going to help us make a better, conscious, and logical decision. So that's one of the things that we'll work through. Another one that we have is your gut feeling. And the gut feeling is to trust your gut feeling and make a decision based on your intuition. And along with the gut feeling is, I'm going to say, the energy, the emotional energy that you have at the time. Like if I wake up one day and I'm feeling optimistic, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I make the decisions that I have the energy to make today, that I feel on top of the world, and I feel like I can make this decision with no qualms, no questions. I got this, right? So those decisions might be where I start in the pantry and I go, hey, I'm going to start in the pantry first. I'm going to pull out all the food that I'm going to use, leave the stuff that I know I'm not going to use. And in a worst case scenario, I scoop it up and it goes in the garbage before I leave, right? So that might be an easy decision. But if I'm feeling on top of the world and I've got all this energy, maybe I tackle the closet first, right? Fran says the closet pro is pack all want to take that won't be needed before the move. Yes, and I like that a lot because we get to decide all the tough decisions. And that's, what did you not wear in the last year? What did you not wear through the last season? I know that during the last season, which was wintertime for us, I had several bathrobes. And I did not wear the bathrobes at all. I ended up wearing like a great big snuggie thing that is like a great big monster hoodie. It's like lamb's wool on the inside. It's just super warm, and it has like little arms in it with like little cuffs so that it doesn't make my arms cold. No cold air gets inside. And I ended up wearing that a lot during the cold of the winter time instead of the bathrobes. And so I probably wouldn't take the bathrobes with me. And so having, packing everything up is going to let you know what you used, what you didn't use. It's going to help you make those hard, fast decisions. So again, the gut feeling and going on the pros and cons will make that easier for us. All right, so back to the pantry, the cupboards, and the closets. And the next step is sleep on it. Have you ever got in the mind frame where you were going to declutter something? And this is where we get overwhelmed and we're like, I just don't think I can do it right now. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't do it right now, and maybe you sleep on it. Maybe when you wake up in the morning, you have a clearer idea of what it is you want to do, exactly how you want that move to go down. And it might be that tonight, I just don't have the bins, I don't have the boxes, I don't have the way to separate everything tonight. I can't figure it out tonight. But tomorrow, when you're more rested, you might wake up and your mind has been working on it all night while you were sleeping. And you might wake up with a very crystal clear idea. I'm going to have a donation. I'm going to have a toss. I'm going to have a donate or a sell. Like if you're going to sell it on Etsy or eBay or I don't know, something like that, a consignment store, you might have that as a crystal clear idea. Then the next thing that you might discover is that you might start on a different area tomorrow because you have a different energy about you. I know that there are times we get in the mood where you start on one little project and soon you're in the thicket of it and you're just in the zone, right? And so that might come after you've slept on it or if you've stepped away from it for a little bit. Sometimes if I just get out and I go for a jog and I come back, I'm in a different headspace. And so being in a different headspace then oftentimes will give us different clarity. So sleep on it or just step away from it is the next part of this. So when it comes to each of those areas, it might be easier once you take a break. All right, the next one is seek advice. Sometimes we need to seek advice from a family member that's going to be affected by the move. So for example, I know that there are times that I'm going to do things my way because this is my house and I know how my house works, but there are also other people that live in my house. And maybe they also have an opinion about what goes and what stays. So by having a conversation with someone else in the house, that might help us sometimes clarify what the decision is. Do we want to pack up the pantry first? Do we want to pack up the closets first? Do we want to pack up the kitchen cupboards first? You know, do we want to eat off paper plates for a week? Are you guys cool with that? Can we eat out for the next week and pack up the pantry and the cupboards and then just focus the last week on all of our clothes? And everybody in the family might be good with that. But if everybody else was starting with their closets and you start with the pantry and the kitchen and you pack everything up and then they're not, they got nothing to eat and no pots or pans to cook in, maybe we need to seek advice from other people. Fran says, I resolve problems in the shower. I don't know why, but I think the shower is a great place to resolve the questions like this because there's no internet, there are no smartphones, there are no interruptions, right? And it's just a chance where our brain can just stop and step away for a minute and then have some of those real live, questions and answers. Example of decisions that keep going back and forth. What is a priority? And what is a priority may change. It may change from day to day, and it may change from the different people in your family. What is a priority to me may not be a priority to my husband. And so again, going back to the seeking advice, I think that's a really good one because it helps us determine, is that our next step? And sometimes it's not all about us. Sometimes it is about the other people in the house. Obviously, you're not going to pack up all of your children's clothes if your children are wearing them right now. The adult closets might go first and then the children's last because we don't know what situations the kids are going to be in, whether they go through more changes of clothes or what have you. And maybe that's your first step of business. So it's going to be different for every single person. But by getting to the point where you say, do I need to ask someone else? Do I need to sleep on this? Do I need to weigh the pros and cons? What other information do I need? Which is going back to number 1. What information do I need to make this happen? Number 7 is set a deadline. When do you need to decide? And there are times literally where I will say, I will decide in 15 minutes. I will decide the answer to this in 15 minutes. And within 15 minutes, I'm going to hurry and gather my information. I'm going to ask somebody if I need to. I might have to send a quick text. Maybe I'm going to go take a look around. I'm going to do a quick inventory, figure out how long this project is going to take me. And then I go, okay, now I'm going to make my decision. If I'm in my car and I'm driving from here to there, we're talking about where to go for dinner. I might say before I get to the stoplight, and I'm saying this in my head, before I get to the stoplight, I will decide. Because if you just keep going back and forth, where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? Right? Have you ever played that game? That happens a lot in a lot of families. And it's just something as simple as dinner. So this will help us decide if you're going to set a deadline. When are you going to decide about the pantry, the cupboards, and the closet? Now, this sounds really confusing because there are 10 steps, but all 10 steps don't apply to every single one. These are just tools in the toolbox. Now, when you go to make a decision, you only pull out the tools that you need. If you can make a decision with only one tool, make a decision with only one tool. If you need 2 tools, you have 10. Pick the 2 that you need. If you need 3 tools, you have 10. Pick the 3 that you need, right? You don't need all 10. These are just 10 tools for your toolbox. Number 8 is visualize the outcome. So if we are trying to figure out what is my pantry going to look like, what are the boxes going to look like once I have everything labeled, what is my cooking going to look like if there's nothing in my pantry, and try to visualize that. What happens if I'm trying to cook a meal and I need something that's in my pantry that I've put away? What then? Or what happens if I'm trying to go somewhere and I go to get a particular outfit and then I've already packed it up and it's out in the garage or it's in the moving van or the pod? Then what? And put it in your mind, try to visualize what it looks like when the project is complete, because that might determine which of the 3 becomes your priority and where you make that decision, right? So if it comes to the cupboards and you know you're not going to use stuff that's there you go, right? All right, the next one is eliminate options. So what we want to do is we want to eliminate options as quick as possible. as quick as possible, we want to eliminate options. So if I'm going to go through my kitchen cupboards and I say, oh, I'm going to eat raw foods for the next few weeks, meaning I'm going to eat salads and fruit and vegetables, and I'm not going to be cooking anything at all, that really quickly eliminates the cupboard option for me. I can go to that immediately. I can pack everything up and we're done with that, right? We're done with that conversation. So I don't need to keep weighing and measuring and pros and cons and all that stuff. If I can just eliminate that as that's going to be my number one priority, boom, we're done. So the quicker and the faster that you can use the tools and come to a solution, that helps you then take action, which is number 10. Number 10 is the tool, probably the number one tool that is probably the most important, and that's to actually act on something. Now, I want to stop for a second, and I want to remind you that no brownie points are given for indecision. If you are indecisive and you say, well, I don't know, you decide, I don't know, you decide, I can't decide, you decide, nobody gets brownie points for that. No one ever liked you any better because you gave up your personal power to make decisions, okay? So I want us, we are new people now, this is our new normal. We're going to now stand up. We're going to say my decision counts. My opinion counts. I'm a good person. I like myself. We've walked ourselves through the mind-body connection of being a mature adult that's healthy. We are confident in ourselves and we are able to make decisions because our opinions matter, right? So from now on, we're going to use the tools that are in our toolbox and we're going to start asking better questions and we're going to make quicker decisions. So we're going to start with one for tonight. Okay, so this is for tonight. And how are we going to do dinner tonight is our question. Oh, I know this is so exciting, right? We've already gone through the 10 tools. We know what the 10 tools are. I'll remind you as we go, but let's go ahead and do this, okay? So our dinner for tonight, we have 3 options. We can cook dinner, we can eat out, or we can have delivery like DoorDash or something like that. Oh no, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Well, let's go through our 10 steps, okay? We're going to gather information. If I'm going to gather information really quickly, what are my options and what do I need to know about dinner tonight? And the information might be something as simple as how much is it going to cost? How much is it going to cost for dinner tonight, as opposed to if we eat out, as opposed to if we do delivery. Now, if we have stuff in our pantry, and I'm tagging these two together, they don't necessarily go together, but if they do go together and we were going to move in a couple of weeks, maybe cooking dinner at home tonight, this is part of the gathering information, we can use stuff that we already have that we know we're not going to take with us, right? The eating out is, oh yes, look, I don't have to cook if we go out for dinner, right? And then the delivery is we can stay here at home and we can pack and get ready for the move or watch TV or just relax or whatever and have somebody bring dinner to us. We don't have to do anything except give them money and then we eat, right? So gathering information is going to be that first step. The next step is going to be to identify the priorities. What are the priorities that involve dinner tonight? And if we are talking about dinner tonight, is one of my priorities for today providing a meal for my family, or is it cooking? Am I more concerned about the health that they're going to get than something that they may order from a menu if they're on their own and they get to choose, or if I order something and they deliver it to me and it's closer to fast food? What is my priority? Is it serving a healthy meal? Is it my time priorities? Or is it spending time with my family? Spending time with my family might actually lend itself more to have the delivery, and it doesn't matter what we eat as long as we're together, right? So the priorities are going to be different for every person. But if we can just eliminate these tools really quickly, using these tools and just say, hey, here's the deal, that's going to help us decide quicker what we're going to do for dinner tonight, right? So then we weigh the pros and cons. We just weighed a couple pros and cons about eating healthy, having the meal delivered. What was the other one? The other one was eating out, going to the restaurant. Pros and cons. One of the cons, I'm going to have to wait 45 minutes once I get a table, and then they take my order, and then they bring my drinks, and then they bring my food. By the time the food is cooked, it's another 45 minutes down the road. So how quick? That's one of the pros, that's one of the cons, right? The pros is I'm going to have a nice meal that I didn't have to cook. A con is I might have to wait a few minutes for it. If I cook at home, the con is it's going to take me a few minutes to cook it. The pro is I get to eat healthier foods, right? So there are pros and cons to every decision that we make. And it makes it easy once you start knowing what your priorities are, because the priorities are going to apply to the next meal and the next meal and the next meal, right? A lot of our priorities are the same, which then starts making decisions easier to make, right? It starts becoming rhythmic. All right, then the next one is our gut feeling. What is our gut feeling? Truth be known, your gut feeling is going to change. There might be times where you're like, I just can't cook tonight. I need to get out. I would love to go to a restaurant. I want someone else to pamper me. My gut feeling is we go out tonight, right? So you get to decide. And because you get to decide, and because your opinions matter, that's what you get to do, right? All right, the next one is sleep on it. Do we need to sleep on it? Do we need to step away from it? Do we need to say, you know what, dinner is just too much of a hassle? No, we don't. And that's when we can just eliminate from the food one. We don't need to, go away on a little retreat and think about it, because we eat every day, right? We know we're going to eat today. So we don't need to think about it. We just need to make a quick decision. So we already eliminated that one from our eating. All right. And number 6, seek advice. Sometimes people do this, and this is the only tool that they use. I don't know. What do you want? What are you in the mood for? That's seeking advice. Okay. And it's okay if you do that. There might be times when people will say, I know in my house it's this, on a Fish Friday between Lent and Easter, I guess. My husband does this thing where he only eats fish and not regular, I say regular meat, red meat or whatever. We don't even eat meat, and we don't often eat fish, but he eats fish every Friday during Lent and Easter. And so this is important to him. This is where I would seek advice and say, are you okay eating just vegetables tonight, or must you have fish, right? I'm going to seek advice on this one, but it's not always necessary, because if your family has the same cohesive diet, you're going to be in alignment with what you're choosing on a regular basis. Again, do we cook dinner? Do we eat out, or delivery? You might seek advice on the cost. If you're not paying for it, you might ask someone else, hey, what do you think, if you're expecting them to pay for it? That's another one where you might seek advice. Okay, and set a deadline. Setting a deadline determines whether or not we're going to eat in the next 45 minutes, or whether we're going to wait 3 hours from now still making a decision. And this has happened even in my own household, where I was busy doing something and I didn't decide, and other people in the house that could have made dinner were indecisive, and therefore 3 hours later still there was no food, right? So if there's no deadline and we haven't said by 5 o'clock we're going to decide what we're doing for dinner, it can stretch into 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night before the family actually eats. So making a deadline for what you're going to have for dinner is also a very good point to make sure that you move the evening along, right? Melanie says, and I want to jump in here, I gave up eating out for Lent, so it's a question of what I'm going to cook tonight, or what salad is coming out of the fridge. I love that. That's so funny, because that sounds just like me. And somebody here says, hangry. Yeah. When you don't eat, you get hangry. I love that. That's funny. And somebody else here says hangry. I like that. Hangry. It almost sounded like there was a fun opinion attached to that. All right, so we're going to visualize the outcome. What does the outcome look like? Do I see myself in the kitchen cooking? I got the apron on. I've got stuff all over the cupboards, which means I'm going to have to clean up. In my visual, there's a cleanup that comes with that visualization. You go to a restaurant, you sit there. For my visualization, there's a wait. I'm going to stand in line for 20, 30 minutes waiting to get into the restaurant of my choice. Restaurants where I live are very, very busy. And so there's a wait involved. I visualize that as well. Now, with the having a delivery, I see somebody coming to my house, but I also visualize when the food gets here and it's not quite hot. It's kind of, 30 minutes since it came out of the oven, and it's going to be kind of not so warm. And so that's what I'm visualizing as well, and has been my experience when food was delivered. So there are all different kinds of visualizations that will help determine if you make that decision. So that's just another thing to think about. Okay, so back to the cooking dinner. I don't know, what are you guys going to do for dinner tonight? This is so exciting. Once we eliminate the options, it's going to help us make that choice very quickly, and that's going to lead us to the ability to take action. Okay, so you see how we did this really quickly with the choosing dinner for tonight, right? All right, let's say, for example, that we decide we're going to go out. Okay, so we get in the car. We're going to do this one more time just so that we can kind of get the hang of it. And I want to ask, do we have any questions so far in this process? Because again, these are just tools that we can use to our toolbox, but I want to go through it one more time. So you can bounce if you got it. If you have questions, leave your questions here in the comments. You can also jump up on screen and say hi. But we're going to do it one more time here. We're going out for dinner, but where? Okay, this is a big one in my house because nobody wants to be the one that says, I get a pick. For me and my husband, we just took turns. It's his turn one turn. Next time it's my turn. And then there's no argument. He gets to do all 10 of the steps, or I get to do all 10 of the steps, and no one is the wiser, right? That way it frees up the other person to make none of the decisions except on their turn. So you can also do that as well. All right, so this time we're going to, and this is kind of fun, we have an all-you-can-eat buffet, we have a dine-in restaurant, and we have a drive-through. So the question is, how are you doing dinner tonight? Real quickly, we're going to gather information. And let's not say that it's dinner. Let's change the scenario a little bit. And in this scenario, let's say that it is lunch after church on Sunday. So you just came from church and now you're going for lunch. Okay, let's change the scenario a little bit. Where are we going to go for lunch, and what is the information that we need to know about this particular scenario? Are we going to go to the buffet where we can just walk in? There's no wait. It's going to be $15.99, and I'm making all this up just for sake of argument. It's going to be $15.99. They're going to seat us immediately, and we're going to just go through the buffet, and we're going to eat whatever we want. The end. Okay? Or are we going to go to a dine-in restaurant where there may be a wait, and we're going to have to try to hurry and get there right after church because in a minute the church crowd is going to be there, and then it's going to be super busy. So do we want to do that and then order our drinks, order our food? It's going to take an hour. And then by the time that we get through with the meal, that will be another hour. It's going to be about an hour and a half before our lunch. Or are we going to go through the drive-thru, make it super quick? We're going to grab some food on the way home from church. And by the time that we get home, we can change our clothes. We can hurry and wolf down our food either in the car or when we get home. And then within a few minutes, we can have the rest of the day to ourselves to do whatever we want, right? So we're gathering information. That's kind of the information that we have. Now, our next one is to identify priorities. The priorities come from what happens in the rest of our day. And so if you have a really busy day as a business owner, for example, Sunday might be the day that you do your accounting and your payroll and all these other things. Do you have an hour and a half to give if you're going to go sit in a restaurant and just hang out? Or is that your meal with your family and that's a really cherished time? And so if that's the cherished time with your family, that might be the priority of the day. And so you might say, I do want to spend the hour and a half. That's the only hour and a half today that I'm going to spend with my family. And so that might be your situation. Or your priority might be, I'm trying to save money. And so instead of spending, $60 for a lunch, I'm going to spend the $15.99 and go to the all-you-can-eat buffet. Food's going to arrive in a minute and it's going to be super fast. I get my food, boom, I can do whatever I want for the rest of the day. So it's going to depend on your priorities. And so if you'll walk through that, and this goes back to the visualization step. If you try to visualize the whole day, what does the whole day look like? And if you only have a certain allotted amount of time, which we do, we only all have 168 hours in a week. And so however you want to spend that 168 hours, that's all you get. Nobody, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how rich, how poor you are, nobody gets more than that. Only 168 hours in a week. So if you spent 40 of that working and it's now the weekend and you have a very limited amount of time, we sleep a third of our lives if we get 8 hours of sleep a night, right? So there's only going to be about 16 hours in the day. Are you going to spend 2 hours of that at a restaurant? I don't know. That might be your priority, right? So you get to decide. And once you start adding your priorities in there, it becomes then very easy to decide, are you going to dine in? Are you going to go through the drive-thru? How are you going to do this? Fran says she's going to the buffet. Fran, I am right there with you. You and me, we're going to the buffet. It's going to be awesome. I love buffets. The next one is the pros and the cons. So when you figure out the pros and the cons really quickly, the pros and the cons, and I'll share a secret with you. The first time you do this exercise, it's going to take you a second. But then week after week after week on the way home from church, your priorities are probably going to be really similar. If you have the same set schedule, your priorities are going to be similar every week. So what you might do is you might get in a habit of saying, every week my family goes out to lunch on Sunday. And that's how we spend our quality lunch afternoon on Sunday, where we get to spend time with each other. We put our smartphones down. Nobody cooks. Nobody cleans up. That's just our time away. That's our special meal of the week. It's also the meal where we're not watching our calories. Everybody gets to eat whatever they want. I'm talking about the buffet again, aren't I? And then you go back to the moment where every week you've removed that indecisiveness because your priorities are very similar. You see what I'm saying? We start to get in a routine. And the more routinized we can make our lives, the more we reduce that indecisiveness. And so instead of reinventing every single day, which is where the stress and the overwhelm comes from, we start repeating what we know. And so if our priority is with our families, and we've already done all the pros and cons, all we have to do then is we just have to say, this is my priority. Is everyone okay with that? You get agreement from everyone where we seek advice. Yes, everyone's in agreement that this is how we spend our Sunday lunch or our Sunday meal. And then from then on, now you don't have to make that decision every week. Your decision is just this one, which is where do you go for that particular meal? And then if you become like my family, you might have your favorite restaurant where they know you by name and you just walk up and there's no reservation. They're like, oh, hey, come on. And they pull you ahead of the great big long waiting line of people. And they're like, hey, come sit down. We've got your table for you. And, they cater to you because you're a long time customer there. And that's how you spend your time and they're expecting you, right? It's like a standing reservation. All right. And then based on your gut feeling, there might be a time when you decide at the last minute, we're not going to do this because something came up and we got to switch gears here. My gut feeling says today that my family needs me and in a private space would be more conducive than at a public restaurant. And so you have to follow your gut feeling on that. But again, it's a tool in your toolbox that will help remove that, oh no, where are we going to go? I don't know. You decide, back and forth, right? All right. Our next one is sleep on it. Do we need to sleep on it? No, we don't need that tool for this, right? So we just move to the next one. Seek advice. This could become a money issue. Again, this could become a time issue. If you have a family member that does run their own business, Sunday could be their busiest day of the week. And so you may want to ask them, how do they see Sunday and how do they see, and I use Sunday in this scenario, how do they see that particular meal? And are they okay with going out, or are they more money conscious because they are running their own business and they would rather cook from home? And so it's really going to depend on what's going on. And like I said, it's different for every single person. And so there's no right or wrong way to answer this. The key is to know that you have tools available and that you can say, hey, wait a second, my opinion matters. And so I count and I'm going to make a decision. And then in the event that your family, children, parents, spouse, partner, whatever, says, I don't like this decision, you can always change it. There's nothing to say you can't change a decision once you've made a decision. It's better to change an already made decision than to never make a decision at all. And so instead of being indecisive and, I'm going to be judged if I make a decision, you're going to be judged more if you don't. Okay. Like I said earlier, nobody gives you brownie points for being indecisive. There are no brownie points. Nobody likes you better for being indecisive and for giving up your personal power to make a decision. So for the very first time in our lives, if you are indecisive, I want you to stand up straight and tall and go, wait a second, I get to choose. I have a choice. My opinion matters. I'm an important person. I get to live inside myself 365 days a year, every year for the rest of my life. My opinion matters. I'm doing this for me. This is what I want to do. I get to decide. Oh my goodness, how easy was that, right? And now you have 10 tools to do that. All right, back to the buffet, the dine-in, and the drive-through. Which are you guys going through? I'm excited. Which are you going through? Do we need to set a deadline? And the deadline is yes, you do, because at some point you have to eat. What is your deadline? What is your deadline? Because has this ever happened to you? You're driving down the road. You might have your partner or spouse on the phone and they're like, do you want me to pick up something for dinner? And they're driving past a place. And if you don't decide really quickly, they're going to drive right on past and you missed your opportunity for food. Did that ever happen to you? I know it did with me. And then finally I say, oh yes, I would like to go here. Oh, too bad, I've already driven past that. Like you did not decide fast enough. And so set a deadline. If someone says, would you like me to pick up something I'm driving past, and they might name the place, you say, yes, I would, thank you. Okay, now you just bought yourself a couple of seconds. And while they're pulling into the drive-through, now you get to decide what it is you're having for dinner. You don't get to go through all 10 of those options before you say yes or no. You just have to jump to the one that says make a decision, which is take action. Number 10, yes, let's please stop. And what you're saying really quickly is you're going through the other scenarios. Yes, I don't want to cook tonight. Yes, we can afford it. Yes, I can imagine us sitting there eating cold, lumpy fries and a burger. By the time you get home, it's going to be like the DoorDash guy. They're not going to be warm. But yes, I can see that happening. Yes, please stop, right? So there are ways that you can expedite the decision-making process. If I can share anything with you, the decision-making process will ease your burden so much. And then the procrastination is what we're going to talk about next time, because the procrastination is a conscious choice. I now know exactly what to do. I know exactly which is my priority. I know how to do that. And then for some reason, you don't do it. Why did you not do it? It's not about emotional attachment. It's not about priorities. It's not about all these other things. It's not about indecision. You know exactly what to do, and you've already decided what you're going to do. But for some reason, you just did not do it. Why did you not do it? Right? So these are tools that I want you guys to start using today. I'm going to answer your question. If you have any questions, throw them up right now. This is a good time to throw up your questions. We can visualize the outcome of all three of the places we mentioned, from the buffet, from the restaurant, and also from the drive-through. We can also eliminate options, saying, I am not eating fast food tonight. I'm going to have a real meal. And so this is the after Sunday church. You might decide that you're going to have a real meal. So you've already eliminated one of those options. You might eliminate the really nice restaurant because you want to save money. And so that might be an easy elimination. And then in the end, of course, we're going to take action. And again, if you take action every single day on something that's important to you, what happens is you get in the process of making decisions. And it's like lifting weights. The more you lift weights, the stronger you become. Now, one thing that we know is true about lifting weights. First time we go to the gym, what happens? It takes a long time. We're clunky. The weights don't work right. We don't really know what we're doing. We're not in the groove. We come home and we're like achy and we don't feel well. And then we're like, oh, why did I do that? And then we go again. And then the same thing happens again. And then we go again. And the same thing happens again. And we break our muscles down, and then all of a sudden our muscles start rebuilding themselves. Then we start getting stronger. Then we go to the gym and it doesn't bother us so much. And then we're like, hey, now I feel pretty good. And now you start lifting heavier weights. And then you get the hang of it. And you're like, hey, look at me now. I go to the gym and I'm lifting weights and I feel good. And it builds confidence, and it builds strength, and it builds stability. And that's the same with making decisions. So if you have a problem with making decisions, and we talked about food today because that's an easy one and it's something you can practice today. But we're going to be using that for clutter as we start going through our lives and we start getting rid of stuff and we start making decisions. We're going to start making decisions even further down the road than that. We're going to start making decisions when we buy stuff and when stuff comes into our lives. We're going to start making decisions right then. And we're going to go through a lot of the same 10 questions that we just covered, these 10 tools about what does that look like if that's in my house? And do I need to talk with someone before I buy this? And if I weigh the pros and cons of having this in my house, oh my goodness, do you see where we're headed with this? All those same tools that we just talked about for making decisions, we are going to use when it comes to clutter and getting rid of stuff or bringing stuff into our lives. And I don't want you to become a minimalist and just get rid of everything willy-nilly. Lots of people do this and they don't have a plan and they don't have any tools. And so they get rid of a bunch of stuff, but they don't know why. And they never resolved any of the 10 tools that we just talked about. They didn't go through any of those steps. And so what happens is a whole bunch of stuff reaccumulates in their lives. And they're like, well, I just thought I got rid of everything. How come there's more? There's more because there was no thought process. But remember how we said we are important and our opinions matter, right? And if that's true, then what we do moving forward is we're going to start making better decisions. And all of us are beautiful, talented, and wicked smart, right? God did not create anybody that's like dumb and stupid, right? That did not happen. And so if that's true and we're all beautiful, talented, and wicked smart, then our opinions matter, our decisions matter, and we have the power to make really smart, wise decisions. And if by chance we exercise the power to make a dumb, stupid decision, nobody gets hurt. It's just a decision, and we can always correct it. But it's better to make a decision and say, hey, this is my decision, and I thought through it and I feel real good about this, and this is what we're going with, than to make no decisions at all and just kind of willy-nilly it and just kind of be, apathetic and sit on the sidelines of life and hope that other people decide good things for us. What? No, this is your life. This is your life. You get to decide, right? I'm super excited that you guys are here today because I'm crazy and you guys get to experience it right along with me. Melanie says visiting with friends and all who's cooking this week and who is also a good community option, like with Fran. You know what? I love this, you guys. This is so awesome. I could sit down and have lunch with all you guys. This would just be so much fun. We'd have a hoot and a holler. Sarah says action each day. Good point. Yeah, I'm really insistent on this. The more we practice this, the better we become. And as I leave you guys here today, I want you to realize that this is your life. No one is living your life for you, and no one should. Everybody that wakes up in the morning, this is your gift. This is your day. You get to decide how you're going to live your life. And if there are people that are like, well, I don't like the way that you're living or whatever, that's okay. That's their opinion. That is their God-given right. That's okay if they feel that way. But they get to live their own day. They do not get to decide how you get to live your day. They get to live their own day, right? So they get to have their own opinions and make their own decisions, and you get to make yours. And so our focus here together is to, number one, accept first ourselves, accept us for who we are, accept ourselves unconditionally, love ourselves unconditionally, and give ourselves the freedom to make wise choices. And instead of saying, well, I don't know what to decide. My opinion doesn't count. Yes, it does. It matters to you. You're the one that gets to live with the outcome of it. So make a good decision, one that you can live with. Use all the tools in the toolbox if you need to. Use 2 or 3 if you need to, and only use 1 if you need it. The more you use them, the better you get at them. And you'll get to the point where really quickly they'll just bounce through your head and you'll go, yes, here's my decision. And then you're going to be confident in the decision that you made. And the confidence is going to empower you to then be the best version of yourself, which is all you're asked to be in this life. You're not asked to be anything else other than the best version of yourself, right? Okay. All right, so that's it for today. I'm super glad that you guys joined me. This was really fun. Thanks to all of you guys that showed up for me. I just really enjoyed spending time with you, and I wish I could buy you lunch, and I wish I could see your bright smiling faces, and I would love to hear your personal stories. So drop me a line. This is a chat that you can leave notes in after we're done if you like. But I will see you again next time, same place, same time, same place. And we will talk about procrastination next week and why, when you know how to make the decisions, sometimes we just don't. Why is that? I don't know. We're going to talk about it next week. All right. Thanks, you guys. This was super fun. And I will see you next week. Take care.